Let's break it down. On Christmas Day, the United States carried out strikes against Islamic State-linked militants in northwest Nigeria, and it's a rare moment where Washington is using direct force in a region that usually stays in the advisors and intelligence support lane. So what happened? Why now? And what should we watch next? First, the basics. The operation was announced by President Donald Trump, who described it as a powerful strike against ISIS militants and framed it as protecting civilians, including Christians. U.S. Africa Command also confirmed the strikes took place on December 25th and said they were coordinated with Nigerian authorities. Early U.S. assessments said multiple ISIS militants were killed at camps in the targeted area. Nigeria's government emphasized the joint operation angle, intelligence sharing and cooperation, but pushed back on the idea that this conflict should be framed as a religious war because extremist violence in Nigeria affects both Christians and Muslims. Now, why is this significant? Because it signals the US is willing to go beyond sanctions, diplomacy and training into direct strikes when it believes the threat is rising or when a partner government asks for urgent help. And this doesn't look like the start of a long US air campaign. It looks more like a targeted hit with limited details released for operational security. So what's the real target here? Northwest Nigeria has seen a mix of militant and criminal groups operating at the same time, and the lines can blur. Ideology, money, and territory all overlap. That's why these headlines matter, but they can also oversimplify the reality on the ground. Now, the political layer. Trump's messaging leaned heavily into protecting Christians. Nigeria's messaging leaned toward "this is counterterrorism, not sectarian conflict," because Nigeria is a diverse country and leaders don't want language that inflames tensions. This is important. Nigeria's security crisis is not one single war. It's multiple conflicts running in parallel. Insurgency in one region, banditry and militant violence in another, and local clashes elsewhere. If the story gets simplified into one identity-based narrative, it can actually make the situation harder to manage. So what happens next? Here are 3 things to watch. Number 1. Does this become a pattern? If Nigeria requests more strikes and the US agrees, then this could mark a new phase in US-Nigeria counter-terror coordination. Number 2. Does the US expand this into a broader hit ISIS wherever it regroups approach? Because the US has been striking ISIS targets in multiple regions when it believes the group is rebuilding. Number 3. What's the local response? Militant groups often react after high-profile strikes by dispersing, blending into civilian areas, or retaliating. The real test is whether Nigerian forces can use this disruption to sustain pressure on the ground. Bottom line, this strike is not just a headline, it's a signal. The US is showing it will use direct force in partnership with Nigeria against ISIS-linked threats, and both governments are trying to control the narrative. Washington emphasizing urgency, Abuja emphasizing complexity and sovereignty. If this breakdown helped, subscribe, hit like and share, and tell me in the comments, do targeted strikes reduce terrorism long term, or do they risk creating new blowback in already complicated conflicts?